Alright guys, so now that we have a kind of a neutral dark image, we're going to do some secondary darkening just to get everything sitting in the same place. So I've tweaked these values a little bit, tweaked the key a little bit as well, just in between the lesson to get this like dark neutral effect. Before it was a little bit still too saturated if you look here. So I just wanted to affect a little bit more of the midtones to take some of that color out. We don't want too saturated of an image to start, and that's what I'm doing here. So next thing we want to do is darken some of those top buildings. So if I go to my script here and you're stepping through, we look at some of the darkening that I did. I darkened this sky quite a bit, and then I started to darken these buildings one by one, and also any really bright areas that stood out to me. So again, that's just some simple roto shapes and bringing it all into the same place. So if we go here and we do that, and I want to point out, again, like I said, this took me many iterations. So some of these values, in terms of where the brightness is landing and everything like that, I didn't get it on the first shot. I didn't have all the values and the darkness in the right place at the first time. You know, maybe I went through the whole comp and I realized, hey, I still need to make the environment a little bit darker. So I went back to these nodes at the top of the script and reworked them a bit. So I'm showing you here basically on a first shot basis. It's, you know, it's kind of where I landed on the final comp. But just to tell you, if you go through this comp and it looks weird at the end and you want to just go from start to finish and do the actual matte painting, I wouldn't expect that the matte painting would be done on version 1. You know, you might have to go back and darken it and tweak the values in certain places to make it feel like the reference you're studying. So I just wanted to point that out. Even though we're learning it, you know, I never get it perfect on the right first shot. That's very rare. So what I'm going to do here is just quickly go here and cut out this edge, and we're going to darken that sky a little bit. So just quickly do a quick roto shape here and isolate that sky. I'm just going to do it rough and go across the scene here and just take it down a little bit and get into a nighttime feeling. And we can always re-add lights back on, which we will do. But one thing I did as well was I did a luminance key to pull that sky. So that's gonna do a lot of the work for us in terms of cutting out those wires. We're not gonna sit there and try to rotoscope 100 wires. So if we take a luminance key and again, another reason I do that kind of left stream you see in the comp is because so we've done this darkening here, and if we ever go back and change one of these grade nodes and we say, hey, we want to brighten our shot in a certain area a little bit, if I have a luminance key sitting here, for example, and I key that sky, let's say I key out the sky and I get just the wires because we want to, you know, do some color correction back there. This luminance key is based on the values that we've changed here. So it's not a good way to organize your composite. So I'll just show you the example, the mistake. So if I go here and I mask it, let's make sure. Oh, also what we can do, what we should do at the start of this comp as well is do a reformat to make sure that we're in the project size. So if you've already done some rotoscopes, make sure you're in 1920 by 1080. So we're going to do that just here. Reformat. Because we want to work in that HD format. Because these, by default, if you set up your script, and I'm going to send you the script, it's going to be in that 1920 by 1080 format. So we just want to put a reformat there so that this rotoscope lines up the correct way. But to show you the example of what I was just explaining, we have this roto shape and key. So I'm just going to line that back up real quick. Okay, so we have that key, but this key is being driven off of the background color. So if I start to darken the sky, and you see it's not affecting the wires too much, we're actually maintaining the brightness of the wires, which is good. I know there's some edges here and we're going to clean up all that stuff later, but if we're darkening the sky, Just want to disable the key to show you. The reason we did the key is we don't want to darken those wires to be extremely black. So we're just keying out the wires. But we can see, okay, that's great. Everything's great. But let's say I want to brighten just this whole environment a little bit. And I go here and I start to brighten it. You'll see our key is starting to break because we haven't structured our composite in a way that's logical. We haven't structured it in a way that's made for change. So this is a problem. You know, if you start doing luminance keys that are based off of everything in the background, and we decide to change the background, it's going to break this part of the composite. So instead, what I will do is I will take this luminance key and plug it in before any major changes have happened. So I would go here and plug it in before the color grades. So we have our main image, or what we can do is take our main image and put it off to the side. So I put it off to the side here. Oops, there we go. Put it off to the side and run it down the entire composite. So I'm going to run down that original image, down the entire comp. And I'm also going to put that same reformat node so we're working in the correct format. So we have 1920 by 1080 and the same here. So instead of keying on this, again, the background that might change, I'm going to plug this keyer into the original image over here. And that's going to structure a composite in a more logical way that can be changed later. So I'm going to take the keyer, key out those wires again. Something like that. And now we're darkening background without affecting the wires. And if we change the background brightness, so I'll put a gray here just to show you. If I change the background brightness, that key is holding up. It's not affecting and breaking our key. So that would be useful to know. And that's how we structure composite. And again, that's why I'm running this picture down the left side of the whole composite, is because we want to avoid breaking parts if we change our mind, which we will. If you're doing a composite like this, you're going to change your mind a lot and tweak things. And if you're working with a director, I can guarantee you they're going to change their mind. So that's something to note. So I go here. What else do? We darken this building. We darkened a couple other spots here with a roto paint. So we can do that. Pretty simple. Again, just what we're doing. So we go here, put a grade node, put a roto node, and we'll just darken it because we want to make it feel nighttime. So we want to go in here, and I'm being really rough with these rotos. Obviously, if you're doing the matte painting for real, make sure it's real clean and get your edges nice and everything. Sometimes you might have to do another roto to roto things out in front. So for example, that's not going to work because we have all those lanterns in front. So in my composite, I took time to make good mats of all of those things, and I'll show you what I did with that. So you'll notice when I'm doing this, by the way, I'm cutting right through. Look, so I'm not cutting around this lamp like this. I'm actually cutting right through the lamp, and later on I'll make a mat of that lamp and cut it away from this roto shape. So that's a better way to do it as well, because I know that there's going to be multiple times in this composite that I need to put things behind this lamp. So if I do my roto the other way, I'm going to have to keep re-rotoscoping things rather than making another roto and just cutting out this object as a single roto shape. So I'm going to go in here later, make a mat like this, and we can use that mat anytime that we need to put something behind it. So it's more efficient. So you need to think about comp efficiency. And these are just some tricks to think about when you're doing that. So I would go here and I would take a roto shape like this, and I would say A, stencil B. So now our roto looks like this. We have the building and the lantern is kind of cutting out from it. So now we're darkening that building behind. So if I darken it down a little bit, we'll see that we're just darkening the building behind without the lanterns being affected in front. And clearly you want to go in here and just clean up those edges, and you'll want to blur the edges a little bit to make them match the footage. So same thing with these lanterns. You'll go in here, you'll rotoscope it out and make mats for anything that is an individual item, but make sure you separate them like this, and then you can rename it and say, hey, back BG lantern screen right, so SR. So we'll have that matte, and anytime we want to put stuff behind it, we have it saved. Okay, so again, last thing, go in with a roto paint and look for any remaining highlights that aren't neutralized. So we go in here, take the roto paint node, set the opacity to 0.1, and I'm just going to take the grade and just darken to some arbitrary value, and go in and paint any areas that are too bright. So this area immediately stands out to me, so I'll go in here, maybe I'll set the opacity to 0.05. And I really always like to paint like this because you really have a lot of control over how much brightness is going to come out of an area. So I'm going to go in any place that I see too much highlights and just kind of knock them out a little bit. So, you know, on this rooftop here, we see quite a bit of highlights on that building back there. We see it's a little bit bright. Some of these areas are a little bit too bright as well. So I'm just kind of bringing it all into that dark space to make it feel like it's coming together. So I'll just darken the building a little bit more and get something sort of like this. Okay, so if we go back to my original composite, we can take a look at the difference here. So one thing I did was I kept some of the wires by eroding that matte. So you see, yeah, we want to darken the wires a little bit, but not maybe completely. So what I did was, if we go back to our matte that was kind of darkening the sky behind the wires, I did a little bit of an erode here to just, you know, maybe we actually want to darken the wires a little bit. So we can always take an erode and just kind of put that behind, but it's still going to stick behind the buildings. So something like that. And yeah, that's pretty good. I think that's a good start for neutralizing everything. Maybe we would want to feather that off a little bit because it feels like it's very cut off. So I'll just take that mask and kind of just do that on the edge. So I'm just holding the Windows button on Mac, or I think it's Alt on Windows, to just grab that edge and feather it out. Cool. So that's a good start for neutralizing the scene.